I don't know. What I should have done is just got him to use a shovel, a whole bunch of gaffer tape, and dump the body. Oh, hi! I didn't see you there. Welcome to my dungeon and the little pit of despair where I write all my dark fiction. You just caught me in the middle of editing my next novel. Yes, it probably would be easier if you want to bump off a character in a story to just, whack them over the head or stab them and drop them off by the side of the road, but that's kind of cliched and easy, and I don't like it when it's too easy like that. For those of you who have been following my blog for some time, you will know that I used to sail a yacht and live on a yacht out on the east coast of Australia. And I came to know the wind and the current and the tides pretty well. So when I started to write my second novel, I wanted to include some of that knowledge. And so here we've got an anchor that's, we've got a boat that's anchored off a little area called Shark Spit. And they wake up to hear a thump on the back of the boat. And the owner of the boat wakes up, climbs over the back of his, over the davits and onto the duckboard, and inspects the boat. Eventually a body pops up. And it's using the tides to take a body away and bring that body back to a location where the body was dumped originally. Turns out that in this particular area, there's a tide that turns around roughly 3 hours one way. It goes along Moreton Island, and then 3 hours later it comes back. And the situation actually happened one day where I dropped a bucket overboard. I've talked about this before, this little situation before. I dropped the bucket overboard, and 3 hours later it drifted away. 3 hours later it drifted right back, and I got my bucket back. So I wanted to use that in a narrative, and this body gets itself attached to the propeller of this yacht. The question is, why do we set so many difficult tasks as writers? Why do we do that? Well, I guess we bring a little bit of our own knowledge to the subject matter, and we also like to challenge ourselves as writers. But I think for myself, I've always been fascinated with why good people do bad things suddenly and out of character. And in my first novel, I actually asked that question and start to tease out the answer. I don't know whether I actually give you an answer, but certainly there are a number of reasons why. Now, obviously, drug taking, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, perhaps torture. There are quite a few other things, but there are ways to turn a person's character around. You might be a Christian on one day and then suddenly everything evil the very next. You do all these wonderful good things, but on one day, and then on the next day, you end up creating havoc and trauma for other individuals. I want to know what causes that to happen. What makes that happen? If you study psychology, read anything about psychology, you notice, we've come to know that we are dependent on so many things. We need food, water, shelter. They're the three top ones. We need security and safety. We need self-identity and awareness and actualization. And there's a bit in there with relationships and how we interpret ourselves through their eyes. But at the core of ourselves, there's always this animal, this flight or fright response, action or reaction. For instance, let's say you're in a burning house. Your first thought is to get yourself to safety so that you don't burn and you don't injure yourself or you don't die. And it doesn't matter what's going on in the world, what's right or wrong, what's socially acceptable. You don't tweet about it, you don't Facebook about it, you don't do a podcast, you don't do a video about it, you don't think what the next person is wondering. You just get yourself safe and then deal with whatever issues come after the fact. Now that's a pretty safe little scenario that I've given to you there. An extension to that would be, say, somebody else's suffering. Nothing can stop a mother getting to its child when it's in pain or it's suffering. It's this inbuilt connection. But we have a lot more sophisticated connections entwined into our psychological makeup. And for some people, when enough buttons are pushed, enough times, over a long period of time, they can switch and become something else. And all of this that we see in this reality momentarily doesn't make any sense. And we have to invent, temporarily, another reality to put into its place. Now, in my books, I kind of take that and expand on it. And my characters end up doing diabolical things to other individuals. But in life, sometimes it's not as dynamic as that. Sometimes a person becomes, they turn inward, they become shy, they don't go out so often, perhaps they fall into a depression, perhaps they get into substance abuse to try and cope with the psychological pain that they're enduring. Sometimes we decide, well, our pain is too great in this location, we'll pack up, we'll sell up, we'll move and go over here, in the idea that we'll escape all that junk that's going on in our previous life. But of course, if the problem isn't the geography, you probably end up taking those problems into the new location because it's actually inside you. So I like to investigate that when I come into writing my books. I'm not really interested in the investigative side. I'm in the investigative side of crime. I don't follow the detectives around and the police around. They're mentioned, but I'm more interested in understanding what makes someone snap. What makes good people snap. Good intended people, those folks who would ordinarily help anyone out, who become killers. That's my kind of story. And so in my first book, Seethings, and if you haven't read it, go and get it, it lays the foundation to that narrative. This book and the one that follows are part of a trilogy, and the two books, the next two books, this one isn't out yet, it's being edited right now. The other one has been written but hasn't been edited. They move a lot faster. We're talking about where the character can go, where the serial killer can go. And so they're still trying to juggle between right and wrong. They know what's right in this reality and they work with that. Everything's cut and dry. But they also accept an alternate reality where murder takes place. And that's perfectly fine too. There's a place and a time for both realities to exist. So yes, I probably make myself one monumental task by having to apply things like bodies in water, mapping out tidal movements, and also giving space and time for the reader to exist in their worlds. And hopefully, if I do the right thing, you side with the character and allow both worlds to exist simultaneously, so you can be good and you can be evil in one person. You may not agree with it, but you can understand it and you can empathise with the character. So that's what I do, dark fiction. It's actually, the proper term for it is neo-noir, which means basically dark writing, noir, neo meaning contemporary. It's written in the now, as opposed to noir, which was written in the 50s. I think the related genres were hard-boiled. Most of it was crime fiction, and you did follow the villain around. He had a gun or he had a knife. Perhaps there was a villainess, and she had a stiletto, and she would end up stabbing people. Very short, quick stories that were written mainly around the gangster movement that happened in the States at that period of time. But this is a little bit more complex because we're now dealing with issues such as, well, DNA, I don't go into DNA in a real big way. Like I said, I'm not following the investigation. I'm following the villain. But there are a lot of more modern terms. We've got some technology involved. Our villain is able to tap into victims' computers and switch on their microphones and listen to what they're doing on a daily basis. And he basically makes a schedule of their life on what he hears. In this one, he goes one step further and places a stethoscope against their gas meter to listen to the pipes, listen to the sounds coming through their pipes. So in one sense, he's got technology in his ear, but he's also got some old school stuff, some medical devices to listen to the pipe work. So he's improving his ability to hunt his victims, find and understand what they're all about, and also justify the means to their end. Anyway, so thanks for dropping in once again. Now, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. You're already watching it, so you already know what the YouTube channel is. I've also got a podcast where I read aloud some of the sections of my novel, as well as some of my opinions. That's what this little fairy thing is at the bottom of the picture. It's my little microphone. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. Or you can come to my website at www.mfp.com.au/your-throat. Don't you just love that? Slash your throat. There's not a lot of blood in my novels. It's all psychological. It's all up here. But I just thought I'd throw that little tag in, /your-throat, slash your throat. mfp.com.au /your-throat. Just love saying it. Probably love hearing it. But remember, there's not a lot of blood. Yeah, come to my website and you can make a comment on any one of my posts. You can subscribe to the blog. I'll get it out in a second. Or you can get a copy of my novel from Amazon.com. Just type in the words Seedings by Michael Foreman and you'll find it. It's available as a as a paperback. It's not a hard cover. And it's also available for your Kindle. You can read it as a digital file on your phone, if that's your fancy. And that's basically it from me this week. So you have yourself a good day, wherever you are in the world. Just remember, be kind to each other. No, that tagline's already been used, isn't it? Ellen, thank you very much.